Good afternoon, everyone. Scott Lang here, president of Visionary Philanthropic Consulting, along with my colleague, Jason Blumenthal. I'm joining you from lovely, sunny Naples, Florida, and Jason is joining you today from snowy, sunny Minneapolis.
Correct.
So the whiteout conditions behind Jason's head have a double meaning. We thought it'd be kind of fun to take some time today to talk about things that have happened to us over the course of these many years of work in the trenches and share with you things that have happened to us, by us, around us, and how we've responded and others responded, so that when there's a problem, we don't have to repeat history. We can actually learn from it. So this is intended on one dimension to be eye-opening, on another to provide a little bit of levity, and on the third to provide an opportunity to provoke some thoughts and conversations at the end of the show. So I am going to share my screen, and we are going to get into presentation mode. And do you have me here? Jason, can you see the slides?
Cannot.
Okay. Screen two, share. Try this.
There we go.
There we go.
Beautiful.
So here we are learning from our mistakes. We've got a quick little agenda. And I'm going to turn things over to Jason to say a few words about himself, and then we'll get right into the meat of the matter.
Thanks, Scott. I'm Jason Blumenthal. So I come at this world a little different from other people. I started my initial business back in the 80s, and primarily what I do is in that world, assist ultra high net worth families and individuals. So most of the stories we're going to talk about today are not from my work or our work with the not-for-profits, but our work with the high net worth individuals and what they have seen with not-for-profits approaching them, and how we've had to react to that in some of the oh dear Lord type stories. I've been lucky enough to go from working with ultra high net worth individuals, which I still do, to also working with not-for-profit to try and offset some of those issues that happen.
That's perfect.
So we're just going to share some fun in air quotes stories. This first one happened several years ago. One of our ultra high net worth clients had a desire to sit on the board of a cultural institution. And we made the reach out to the appropriate people at the cultural institution. You know, our client loves the organization. As you know, they make a significant but small, based on their capacity, gift every year, you know, somewhere between $1,500 and $100,000. They love to explore the opportunity of being on the board. Don't hear anything. Several weeks later, the institution's monthly newsletter comes out, to which they're announcing welcoming their new board members, which includes my client's child, not my client. We're given no advance notice of this, found out via that thing. So, okay, fine, it's not a check mark that you don't want to let them. They wanted the next generation. They should have let my client know this in advance. The child does not have the same financial capacity, but they thought that they would get that through my client. Okay, then 1 week After that comes out and then not getting advance notice, an email comes in to the client from the not-for-profit, does not talk about not being on the board, but it states, a wonderful piece of artwork has become available at auction. We're hoping you would consider purchasing said piece of artwork and donating it or putting it on permanent loan to us. We estimate that the auction price will go somewhere between 1.5 and $1.75 million. Thank you very much for the consideration. To which I got to write back to the not-for-profit. Thank you so much for the offer. However, that is the type of gift that my client gives should they be on a board and you chose not to put them on the board. And have not gotten anything since. And it was one of these things where it was just so poorly handled. And the client said, oh, and by the way, I hope they know I'm not going to give them money now, right? Is that I think they'll figure it out. It was just very, very poorly handled. Let's move to the next one, another scary version of this. So another family had made a pretty significant 7-figure gift to a education organization and got the naming rights to a building. Almost 4 years to the day, in the paper, we read that that institution has sold said building and to a developer, and multi-unit housing is going to go in its place. I get a call from the client saying, did you know about this? I said, I did not. They did not call and tell us this was happening. No, they did not. So I, on behalf of the client, call the institution and say, hey, so what's up with that? They just made the gift. The final payment was just a year ago. The response is, we read through the contract and we are within our legal rights to what we did. No mea culpa. No, oh, shoot, you're right. We should have called them and explained it to them. Oh, you know, maybe we could move the naming to another one of our facilities. It was legal. It was all legal. And you know what? They were within their legal rights. They get to keep the money. However, they have lost $300,000 to $600,000 a year from this family going forward. And I guarantee you at their next campaign, nothing's going to happen. So good job. They were legally within their rights. Like the first one, just reach out. Just let them know. Reminds me of another one. I didn't even tell you about this one, Scott. The client that found out that the board they were on was being dissolved in the paper.
Well,
Happened recently.
I want to contrast that.
Yeah.
I was doing a feasibility study interview after going through the conversation that was germane to the client. The gentleman I was interviewing said, Scott, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. In the spirit of reciprocity, all's fair. So he said, well, I serve on a board and we've got this engineering building and it's old and we need a new one, you know, to be able to handle fiber optic cable, satellite communications, modern teaching techniques, etc. The problem is the existing building was named for the donor. Can we tear it down and build a new one? To which my response was, yes, you may, but you need to find out if there are any surviving members of the family and go have a conversation with them and give them the first right of refusal to make the gift to name the new building. And irrespective of what they do, in the new building, find a place where you can put up a plaque. Maybe it's even the old sign that was on the wall of the old building or the masonry to recognize the gift that this family made historically.
Yeah.
He nodded appreciatively, took notes, and it was very interesting when 2 years later I discovered that a new engineering building bearing this man's name was being constructed on the campus, and they had in fact followed that very protocol that I had
It,
presented. And you're
it's,
right, Jason, it's all about doing things the right way.
yeah, the stewardship, just appreciating the gift, not thinking of them as a purse. So one of the things I'm lucky enough to do with several families is go over their year-end giving. But some of them call their holiday gifts, some of them call their Santa gifts, where they're not major donors, but they're, 100 to 10,000 to $20,000. And ultra high net worth people get asked for money multiple times a day, no exaggeration, in 100 different forms. And these families compile them throughout the year. And then I get to sit with them and we decide what to do. This example, this client would always do a yes pile, a no pile, and a yes, let's discuss pile. I'm going through them, and in the no pile was an organization she had been supporting for 14 years. $25,000 a year, 50,000, sometimes 100. And so I said, hey, client, what's up? How come? Client says to me, flip over the card. It was a mail, request, flip over the card. I flip over the card and I go, ew. It was addressed to my client's married name. My client had been divorced for more than 10 years. Client says, if I cannot trust them to use my money, if I cannot trust them to figure out their database, how can I possibly trust them how to use my money to help children? There were multiple requests to change it. This is a well-known person. Everybody knew. So, and I'm not saying every high net worth donor is going to cancel it, but it's a little attention to detail that costs them, $20,000 to $100,000 a year. And I, sometimes I'll push back with my clients, but in this one I was like, yeah, I get it. You've asked over and over again. And to the client, it was a respect thing. They don't respect me enough to do this. So that was it. Gone. And I always like to let the not-for-profits know why, right? Most not-for-profits would absolutely prefer to know. They don't want the, oh yes, I'm interested. If you say I'm not interested, that's great. They can move on. So you let them know why. Another example of that, you can flip to the next one, Scott, is with another family doing a similar situation. But what they do is they bring in their family office representative and their secretary. And then we sit and go through. Client pulls it up, says, all right, this organization, how much do I give to them a year? You give them about 25 to 50,000 a year. Says, all right, secretary, please pull up all interactions I've had with them over the last year. They've got the call log, they've got the email log. Secretary says, I kept notes on this one because it's crazy. Said, all right, you've received 5 emails requesting sponsorships for different events, 1 United States Postal Service letter, which was a tax form acknowledging your gift last year, 4 quarterly newsletters. Client, any thank yous, any text messages, any calls? No. You received 5 email solicitations and the 4 emails. Client's response, remove them from the list. All it would have taken was a thank you for your money. Thank you. Here's what your donation is doing to help the community. Just anything. Client said they think of me as a pocketbook, as a purse, and we went through every single one. And if they didn't have a thank you, they're out. Out. So it's stewardship. That's all. Oh, this was a tough one. So I get a call from a client saying, hey, can you please call blah, blah, blah education center and withdraw my $250,000 gift that I was giving for my child graduating. Sure, you want to tell me the reason? Because we ought to let them know. Turns out their child was the valedictorian 1 week before graduation. The child was called into the principal's office and informed that yes, they were the valedictorian. However, even though they had been told they were going to speak and they were going to be honored, that wasn't going to happen because the school felt they needed to go in a different direction and have other people speak and have other people honored. The school gets to make that call, right? I'm not going to say how that part was right or wrong. 1 week before, calling the child into school, into the principal's office during school. No discussion with the family, no preparation, no anything. The child was heartbroken, and the parents called me and said, yeah, we're done. Said, if it weren't the last week of school, we would pull our child. That's how upset we are about this. It was bad. They lost, not only did they lose the money, and that's their right, right? The school gets to make the decision. We prefer our principals versus this. You absolutely get that right. It was how it was handled. Had they explained the reasoning, the client might have said, I get it. Or they might have said, why are you punishing my child? Let my child do their thing and honor these other people. That wasn't the issue. It was how it was handled. And here's maybe even the worst part. My client has let every single person they know about this. And it has not positively impacted the school.
Oh.
Poorly handled, just poorly handled. So this is one, not just a single example, but this is a weekly, if not daily type thing that happens. So it's the dear blah, blah, blah. It was great to see you at whatever event, or great to meet you at whatever event. Was so excited to hear that you love our organization. Would you please consider a gift of $250,000 for our upcoming whatever? Or would you consider a $2 million gift? We just met at this event, and I'm asking you for 6 figures or 7 figures via email. Every week I see these. You don't ask someone for that you don't know. I mean, I would say, Visionary would say, you don't ask people for that amount of money via email in general. And the stewardship, it goes against everything. And we see this all the time. And here's what happens. They get torn up. Here's often the way it happens. The high net worth person is at an event. Some director of development or VP of development or someone is sitting at another table with somebody. They look over at the other table. They say, oh, that's blah, 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 ultra high net worth person. The person sitting there wanting to feel important says, oh, yeah, I know them, sure. The director of development says, you know what? I got to go take my shot. Goes over, introduces themselves, says, I'm friends with Debbie. Looks over at that person who Debbie just said, I know them, right? They say, would love the opportunity to talk to you about the organization that I'm, director of development for. It's, blah, blah, blah. the ultra high net worth person wanting to be nice and in a big setting says, oh, what a wonderful organization. I love that organization. Okay, that's the interaction. By the time the director of development has gotten to their car, they've called the executive director, they've called the chair of the board, they've called the head of their advancement committee, they've called their family and friends. Oh my God, we've got blah, blah, blah billionaire. They're in. By the time the high net worth donor has gotten to the car, they have absolutely, completely forgotten the entire interaction. This happens so often. Would I prefer if the high net worth donor said, lovely organization, right now it doesn't fit within my giving? Yes. Or love it, call the family office and let's schedule a time? Yes. But they don't. They say, oh, love it, would love to hear more. And then you get this email, and then I get a copy of said email with a note from the donor saying, who's Debbie? Do I know Debbie? Who is this not-for-profit? What do they do? And when did I meet this person? Almost weekly, we do that. So it's stewardship, it's expectations, it's don't ask for $1 million via email. It happens all the time. All
So
the time.
Jason, a follow-up question. If in a setting like that,
Yeah,
Debbie or the director of development were to send a follow-up email, say, thank you for coming to our event. It was a delight to meet you. I'd love to get 30 minutes on your calendar in the next 2 weeks, if that'd be possible, to talk.
absolutely appropriate.
That could happen.
Absolutely. I would say it's better coming from Debbie saying, so wonderful to run into you. I saw that you spent a couple minutes with director of development. Would love the opportunity to spend 30 minutes to talk about it. Now, more often than not, unfortunately, Debbie doesn't actually know this person, right? Quick side note, I'm at an event 6-7 months ago. Now, I work for a number of billionaires. I am not their friends. I am friendly. I have a deeper personal relationship than probably anyone, because I see their emails, I see their calendar, I talk to them every day. But we're not friends, right? It's a weird connection. At an event a few months ago, talking to a friend of mine who's there, looks over, sees a billionaire person, goes, oh, wow, that's blah, blah, blah. I love them. I said, oh, you know them? They say, oh, yeah, we're really close. I have access to this person's email, calendar, everything. In 17 years, I've never seen this other person's name. Okay, fine. I let it go. The billionaire sees me, does the move. I walk over and say, excuse me for a second. They go, oh, you know them? I said, I do. Gives me a huge hug. We talk. I say, oh, you know the person. To which they say, who are you talking to? I do the head nod. They say, no idea. It happens all the time. All the time. So the be upfront. This is another one of these that happens all the time. The emails come in, the calls come in, the texts come in. Dear ultra high net worth person, I don't know if you remember me, or hopefully you remember me. We went to high school together, we went to college together, we grew up near each other. Haven't seen you in so many years. I'll be in town next week. Love the opportunity to catch up. And that's what it is. Those then get forwarded to the high net worth secretaries, who then forward them to my office, and we do the research. And 9 out of 10 times, someone from my office then calls this person and says, hey, I see you've requested, coffee with this person. Can you tell me what it's in regards to? They'll say, oh, just in town, would love to catch up with them. And I'll say, oh, that's great. I see that you are the campaign chair for Alliance Francaise capital campaign. Will you be requesting a gift from this person? Oh, well, yeah, sure. I would like the opportunity to talk to them about that. Be upfront. Yeah. Ultra high net worth people get asked for money all the time. They get asked, could you get my nephew a job? Could you do this? Could you do that? Do you know what they don't get the opportunity to do? Just have lovely conversations with old friends. They're so hesitant because everybody is always asking them. And here's the thing, you know what? If you want to talk to them about this campaign, great. Just be upfront. Be upfront. Let them know that you would like the opportunity to talk to them about an organization you care deeply about and you think might be of interest to them. Otherwise, it comes across as a bait and switch, and it's hurtful. It
Would
really
that be
is.
better in a second meeting, like just have the first meeting, have the coffee, catch up, and then
Yes,
toward the end say, hey, listen, just want you to know I'm like you sitting on a couple of boards, and the next time I'm in town, I'd love to conversation with you about what you're doing and what I'm doing.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
ease into it instead of on the
Absolutely.
first.
But Scott, you and I know we've been in enough rooms with boards of directors and people on campaigns, and a high net worth person's name comes up, and people want to act like they know them, right? And then but that's why we have the second thing. Could you reach out to them? And people get too far down the line. They're like, oh, I said, yes, I have to do it. But just be upfront. Just be upfront. Your way is good. Say, at some point, I would like the opportunity to.
So I'll tell a story. I was the director of development at the University of Missouri, Columbia. And I've got a meeting in St. Louis with a retired Army Air Cavalry captain. I mean, this guy came out of Vietnam alive, as well as the majority of his squadron, which was no mean feat back then when casualties were at an all-time high. And I walked into his office and said, Roger, want to thank you for your time. Want you to know that our chancellor is down in Jefferson City right now, trying to drum up some support from the state legislature because, as you know, we're going through budget cuts and the state's reducing its support of higher education, all the system campuses, and simultaneously at the same time, there's less money coming out of the federal government. And so, it's really at moments like this when we need to turn to loyal alumni like yourself to dig a little deeper and see if there might be a way for you to help with a significant philanthropic investment. To which this Army Air Cav captain looked me straight in the eye and goes, Scott, just because the government doesn't want to pay for stupid things, don't think I want to start paying for stupid things. And I just at that moment realized the big deflator whistle was going off, and outside circumstances don't impact our case for support. So on the 1.5 hour drive back to Columbia, I'm sitting in the car and I'm thinking to myself, there's a lesson here. We were the first land grant university west of the Mississippi River. And as such, we have a charter that says any student graduating from high school in Missouri with a C or better average has an opportunity to go to our university. And if you come to our medical school, we know we're not competing with Johns Hopkins in terms of bleeding edge research. We're graduating family practitioners to go to the boot heel and serve the citizens of this great state. That's a mission. If you'd like to join us, we would love your participation and partnership. So from that point forward, I knew how to present who we were, what we did, and how we did it. And our first ever endowed chair was the one I solicited for the business school. It was the Missouri Bankers Chair. From bankers, a consortium of banks to help the banking industry in the state. But without a clear case, you cross wires with people. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, yeah. I'll add one other quick thing on that, which is it's a clear case in knowing who you're speaking to, right? So much of what we're talking about is doing the research. And I've had cases where I've sat in on meetings and the person making the ask is using, hunting analogies. And my client is like an animal rights activist, PETA vegan. And they're getting more and more horrified when, and with the rifle even though the organization was brilliant and wonderful, they got so turned off by the analogies. It's know your audience, right? If somebody's into sports, use sports analogies. If somebody's into family, just know your audience. We could do an entire hour just on, oh man, I can't believe they did that at the event. Scott and I sat and we're rattling off cases where high net worth donors contacted us with how upset they were with where they were seated or who they were seated with, or, why are we by the kitchen door? Why are we sitting with the consultants? What, our $1 million a year isn't enough to get us up front? Or, over and over and over that type of things happens. Put people with peers, know the people. If there's somebody that loves talking, if it's a museum and they love talking with the curators, then put them with curators. But peers are better. And some people couldn't care less. Some people care. And you better know who those people are that care. Okay. If it is a fundraising event, remember to ask. Let's see. Was at the event last year. Wonderful event. Times for the CEO to get up at the very end. CEO gets up and says, I know I'm supposed to ask for money, but I really hate doing that. So good night, everyone. There were pledge cards. There were QR codes. There was everything. Nothing. At an event last summer, almost identical. Was not a client for either people. Afterwards, I go up. They say, what do you think? You do this for a living? I say, it was wonderful. But you had 150 people here, and nobody said, we're a not-for-profit. We only exist because of support of people like you, of the community. And they said, well, we didn't want to make this an ask. Yeah, but you need to remind them. You don't have to make the ask if it's not a fundraising event. If it is a fundraising event, do you know what you have to do? Make the ask. Another thing in that case, if you're going to do who's willing to do $10,000, who's willing to do $15,000, we urge you to already have guaranteed for each of those groups 1 or 2 people. Otherwise, more often than not, you end up with crickets. Call it a shill, call it whatever. A lot of times people don't want to be the first, but once they've seen someone else does it, do it. So unintended consequences, all this, it's pulling the gifts, it's doing this, it's doing that. I'm going to talk, Scott, we had mentioned this one, I'm going to talk about it now because it makes sense. One of my clients was at an event recently, called me apoplectic, so mad. Here's what happened. End of the event, the CEO is getting up there thanking everyone so much, and he says, and I know, blah, blah, blah. Didn't want their name brought up, but I really got to thank you because without you, none of this would have happened. So thank you so much. This client pays significant amounts of money to keep their name anonymous. As far as my client was concerned, this executive director just outed them. They were so mad at that I had to walk them off the ledge. It was terrible. If somebody says, I want to be anonymous, keep it anonymous. Respect that. Really important.
So I'll come back on screen here. I'd been working on a law school campaign with a capital campaign chair for over a year. We're meeting at his club. All the conversations have been about the architecture, the need for expanded library space, office space, some new teaching space, etc. And knowing the regard he had for his dad, who also graduated from the same school, I thought best thing to do would be to do something in honor of his father. So I literally, this is back in the day before everything was electronic. I had a printed proposal in my briefcase, and I'm just waiting for the waiter to clear the table so we're just down to coffee and no one will interrupt us. And Bob turns over to me and he said, Scott, how much would it cost to endow a scholarship in my dad's memory? And I said, I came up with a number. And it was the same amount of the proposal that I had in the briefcase. But I turned to Bob and I said, how about if I come back next week with a proposal for your consideration? Because I wasn't going to embarrass myself by showing him the illustration of the wing named for his dad. But in a similar regard, relative to the art of closing a deal, Jason, you've got a marvelous story.
Yeah, this one happened not too long ago. Wonderful not-for-profit had done really, really a fabulous job of cultivating a donor who happened to be a client of mine. Really, they did not push it. They were respectful. They brought them in. Wonderful stewardship. I mean, really impressive, like straight A work on stewardship and cultivating, and got to the point where they earned the right to make a major ask and said, we would like to talk to you about making a large 7-figure gift. We would like to offer you naming rights. Could we have some time to talk to you about this? Absolutely. Client and I go out to their facility. It's going to be for this wonderful building. I mean, the mock-up is beautiful. The PowerPoint presentation. It was really one of the best presentations I've seen. Respectful, used all the right words, hit all the triggers, everything. So they get to the last 10 seconds, and basically, here's how it goes. They switch it over to the board chair, says, so, client, we would like to respectfully for you to consider a 3-year gift of $1 million a year. What should happen is nothing. But here's what happened. So we would like you to consider a 3-year gift of $1 million a year, to which the CEO immediately says, but a $500,000 gift would be just as wonderful and appreciated. Maybe a 2-second pause in between those two. Client says, wonderful, thank you, we'll take it under consideration. Thank you so much for everything. Client and I, nothing, silence, walk out, walk out, walk out, get to the car, doors close, pull it onto the street. Client looks at me and says, did they just go from a $3 million gift to $1.5 million gift in about 3 seconds and still offer me the naming rights and still do all of that? I said, yep. She said, all right, let's call the family office, tell them $500,000 for the next 3 years, and now let's you and I figure out what to do with that other $500,000 that we were planning on doing. Because she was set to do it.
So the lesson here is always be silent after you make the request, right?
Yes.
The next person who speaks should be the prospective donor.
We do role playing, right? With people who are going to make the ask. And more often than not, they'll say, so we love the opportunity, about, $10,000. And then they start talking. No, 5 seconds. It might be 2, 3, 5 minutes. I don't care. The next person that speaks is the donor. They cost themselves 1.5 million. It was like that. Gone. Gone. So know your audience. This one's on me. I was sent out to do a feasibility study interview. The client, not for profit in this case, they put their name on the list, said you absolutely have to interview them. Said, you got it. It's pre-COVID, so I went out to meet with the client. I did not do the research. I am a researcher. I did not do the research. All ready to do the thing, gives me a tour of the manufacturing facility, says, all right. I say, all right, thank you so much for taking the time. Hopefully you had a chance to read the, case for support for this capital campaign, to which he says, let me interrupt you. I don't believe in capital campaigns. I would never fund one. I would have nothing to do with it. If the not-for-profit needs a new building, they should do the same thing that I do when I run a business. If I don't have it in cash flow, then I don't get it. Okay, had I done the research and looked and seen who this person gives money to, what they care about, their blog posts, I would have been prepared. And then I could have started with, I very much respect your business acumen. Do this. Can we talk about the differences? I like to talk about the primary differences between a not-for-profit and a for-profit business, and how you as a business can get a loan and finance something, and how that isn't so easy. I blew it. Excuse me, that one was completely on me. So I pivoted. I said, all right, tell me why. Right? Didn't ask one question in the feasibility study because it wasn't going to happen. But instead, I spent an hour learning about him and what his beliefs are and what he does care about, and was able to use that to then say, I get it. No capital campaign. What could we do to get you more involved with the not-for-profit and an annual giving? He actually did that thing. He actually did. That's the question. See? Figured. But I should have been prepared in advance. Luckily, I was able to pivot. It comes down to stewardship. It comes down to thanking the client. It comes down to, here is what your donation has done, right? Jerry Panis, Scott and I come from Jerry Panis's world. Thank the client again, then thank the client 7 more times. Don't think of them as a purse.
We had a situation last year where the client actually got an email from someone who gave him $50,000, said, I never really got a thank you letter, and I'm considering giving 100 next year, but could you tell me what the money was for?
Yeah. Literally. I have a client that's been texting me, finally stopped, a number every day increasing by 1. That is the number of days it has been since they have received any communication, a thank you or anything, after confirming that their pretty significant gift was received by the not-for-profit. So it was day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. That's what the client remembers. That's what the donor remembers. You didn't even think. And by the way, a tax receipt is not a thank you.
Yeah, that's right. And there was a study done. We've mentioned this with the fundraising effectiveness project in the past. I think it was something like only 45% of those interviewed actually send out a thank you letter, as distinct from the tax receipt that's required by the IRS once a gift hits a certain threshold. This last one you talked about earlier, but
Yeah.
it was an inappropriate, over enthusiastic thank you when they wanted to remain anonymous. So
Yeah, this has happened. It's a real trigger point for this particular donor because it's happened more than once. Um, the, Even the Thanksgiving meals at the grocery store, where this client is the kind of person that'll say, how many of those packets you got up there? There's 100 and they're 25 bucks a piece. And we'll write a check or say, just put it on my credit card for all 100 of them and keep them. And they'll go to ring the bell. They're like, no, no. If you ring the bell, I'm declining this charge. You got to respect it. You got to respect it.
So at this point, what we'd like to do is open things up for conversation. If anyone's willing to share something that they've run across or experienced, that'd be good. We've got a question or maybe a statement. It doesn't matter if someone knows the prospective donor. Does the donor know them and respect their opinion? So back when you were talking about the person at the event who claimed they knew the person with the money, are there places where there may not be that direct bridge, Jason, but your client recognizes this other individual's business acumen and would be inclined to respect them even if they're not friends?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I would say, I said this to someone on a call yesterday. So, no disrespect to you, director of development, but the CEO of General Mills is more likely to respond to a call or email from the CEO of another corporation. You're right, peer to peer. And they may not know each other personally, but it's peer to peer. And they all ask each other for money. Do you know how much quid pro quo there is in that level? So they all get it. They know.
Yeah, I mean, I've classically advised people that if we are asking board members in particular to help us solicit other people, that the amount that they're going to be soliciting is equal to the amount that those people are eventually going to ask
Yeah.
them to contribute to the analogous organization that they happen to serve.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
time and time again.
Yeah. It's a, again, I'm just referring to, you know, the ultra high net worth people.
Mhm.
You're so insulated so often, right? The billionaires. You want it to come from somebody in their world. There's a comfort level. There's a I've had them say things like, um, you know, our Gulf Stream is having problems, and I'm at lunch with my extended family, and I'm the only one that's wealthy, and I feel like a moron talking about how my biggest problem is my Gulf Stream is having problems. And I get it that, oh no, boo-hoo. But I also want to be able to have people that I can talk to about my airplane because I have a plane and other people have planes. And so I get it that there's these levels. And most of them also get it. And they don't want to feel weird that they're worth $1 billion and they're sitting across from somebody that can only give 100 and they're asking them to give 1 million.
Mhm.
It's absolutely agree with you on that. Yeah.
So we've got a question here. We've scheduled a meeting with a prospective donor whom we've cultivated for a year. He's interested in learning about a campaign, and that's the purpose of the meeting. Since scheduling it, we now have an urgent need to help fund a program. Would you recommend that we inform him in advance about this need so we can discuss it at a meeting? And FYI, the meeting is going to be in a restaurant. So I'll respond to the last part of that sentence first. I classically stipulate that a restaurant is probably the worst place to have a meeting because you can't control the environment.
Yeah.
And the interruption of the wait staff, et cetera, the conversation being overheard. Much prefer to be in a private location, home, office, private club. So that might temper what I do in the restaurant. I might be inclined more to talk about the urgent problem and close by saying I'd love an opportunity to talk about this in private, back at your office or back at home. I don't know, how would you respond to this, Jason, particularly the concept of switching from capital to what sounds like, an important operational expense issue?
Yeah, so I'd want to learn a little bit more. I am always concerned about the concept of bait and switch. I thought I was coming to this meeting thinking that this is what you were going to ask me for. Now you're asking me for something else instead. I would let them know in advance. That's my opinion because of that. That being said, you want to also make sure that if it's an urgent need, right, donors like to give on success. I personally am not a fan of we need your help. We're falling behind on our goal. If we don't hit our numbers, no. Most donors like to give on success. Because we are doing so well, we are expanding. Because we have because of your generosity, right? Don't make it about we, make it about you. Because of your generosity, we are growing. So if it's we need your money or we're going to close, and it's that type of urgent thing, I would look at going to long-time dedicated funders and say, can you move your 3-year gift up to now? Or can you do this or can you do that? So I don't know the situation, but that being said, yeah, okay, so I'm seeing the response here. You are not alone in that case.
So the comment made was
Yes.
it's urgent because the government funding has fallen through. And that's obviously something the organization is relying on.
Yeah. If you believe that this donor would be interested in this program, then you can do it however you want, switch it from an urgent need to an amazing opportunity. We were going to use your giving for this, but this really fabulous opportunity has come up. Because this program, the government has fallen through, we think that you could be the person that could do it. And it would really fit in what you care, and it would really do this, and it would be a really amazing opportunity for us to work together on this. That's just without me, with 2 seconds and not knowing anything more about it. That's how I would probably approach it.
Mhm.
Hope that helps.
The other piece of insight was maybe use the call as an opportunity to better understand, both the client and the prospective donor.
Absolutely.
So in other words, you could discuss the value of the program and the lives that it's impacted and see how that resonates with the prospective donor you've been cultivating for a year, to determine whether or not, as you said, Jason, they'd be the one who'd want to step into the breach and ensure that service can exist in perpetuity. or at least finance it for the next 5 years, right?
Right.
Similar kind of thing.
And this is where you do the research, and maybe it doesn't need to be an either or.
Mhm.
Maybe it can be a both and, right? We were planning to talk about this. This other opportunity has come up. Maybe if it's something that they care deeply about, maybe you can get both. I don't know.
Well, and oftentimes when you're dealing with people who are business minded and entrepreneurial, if you invite them to become involved in the conversation about resolving the problem, you know, how might you respond? What suggestions would you have? Are there other people that you know that are interested in what we're doing that we might be able to approach or talk to?
What's the cliche, Scott? If you want people's money, ask them for advice. If you want people's advice, ask them for money.
Very true.
And
Very true.
but be honest about it. Actually listen to them.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very good.
Mhm.
Well, we're closing in at the end of our hour. We appreciate everyone's participation today. We understand the holidays are coming up, so we'll close quickly. But one of the things we want you to take home is the concept that our typical frame of reference is to think outside the box. Our methodology involves re-examining both the programs you conduct and your constituent base, so we have an understanding of what your capacity is and what you do. Reimagine what you're doing without shackled by any limitations of financial capacity. If money were no object, what would you accomplish in the next 5 years? Or as one of our consultants says, 5, that's too far out, 3 max. But then we realign, our resources to accomplish that vision statement that you've created for yourselves. And it's our true hope that over the course of the next week, you'll experience a blessed and lovely Thanksgiving holiday with friends and family. If you ever want to reach out to us, our nomenclature is real easy. It's our first name followed by visionaryphilanthropy.com. And we're both very happy to spend time in conversation with you. So with that, Jason and I will say goodbye and thank
To
you
everyone,
all for participating with us.
have a
Bye-bye.
wonderful holiday. Thanks, everyone.